Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, new employment figures are out. We'll tell you how San Diego compares to the state and the rest of the nation. And we'll introduce you to some special kids in El Cajon and hear about an organization helping them transition to life into the U.S. through soccer.
And I'm Peggy Pico. Coming up on our weekly roundtable, federal and state agencies seek to balance green energy mandates and environmental conservation in a massive development plan for Southern California deserts. Then Mayor Bob Filner promised government transparency, but hasn't delivered so far. KPBS Evening Edition starts now.
KPBS Evening Edition is made possible by Joan and Irwin Jacobs and by
Hello, good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Dwayne Brown. The nation's job market added 155,000 jobs last month, but it wasn't enough to bring down the country's unemployment rate. Joining us to talk about it is KPBS business and environment reporter Eric Anderson. So, Eric, how does California's job market compare to what's happening nationally?
Well, Dwayne, it's actually tracking pretty close in terms of job gains. California picked up just over 62,000 jobs in leisure and hospitality. And information industries added about 26,000 jobs. Construction, an increase of 26,400 jobs. California's jobless rate of 9.6%, well above the national average. And here in San Diego, the unemployment rate stands at 8.3%.
So it looks like things are improving, but are we on the road to recovery?
Well, the economy is improving, as you said. The job numbers reflect that. But the threat of the defense industry cutback is still very real, and that could have a huge impact on San Diego's overall economy. Because of that, the jobs tied to the defense industry, Labor Secretary Hilda Solis told KPBS today that the federal government is already working to help ease any transition.
What we need to do is look at how we offset any job loss. I mean, we saw many jobs lost over the recession over the course of the last three years in areas of manufacturing overall. So we need to bring that back. That will help to keep those folks employed. So we need to make sure that there's a transition there. And that's why we've really built out our American Job Centers and our Workforce Investment Act programs, making sure that we connect what entrepreneurs and manufacturers want in terms of what the skill sets are that are needed and the instruction and the credentials.
Now, the job forecast here is positive if the military and other government spending cuts don't take too big of a bite. And if there's no major unsettling event, economists say that the recent trend of steady but unspectacular growth will continue in the coming year.
KPBS reporter Eric Anderson. A longtime San Diego banker, philanthropist, and political mover and shaker has died. Murray Gallinson was president and CEO of San Diego National Bank for 25 years. He served on the board of several foundations, including Price Charities, and supported inner-city development, youth projects, and museums in Balboa Park. Gallinson was a prominent and loyal Democrat, but crossed party lines to support GOP mayors Pete Wilson and Jerry Sanders. He recently had surgery to remove a tumor between his brain and spinal cord, but no word tonight on what caused his death. Murray Gallinson was 75. The United Port of San Diego regulates development, business, and recreation along miles of the waterfront. 5 cities have delegates on the board, and next week San Diego will choose its newest representatives. KPBS Metro reporter Katie Orr joins us from the News Center. Katie, how is the Port Commission set up, and what kind of control does the city have over it?
Well, Dwayne, as you mentioned, there are 5 cities that are represented by the port. Coronado, Imperial Beach, Chula Vista, and National City each have 1 commissioner. But the city of San Diego gets 3. So not enough to control the board, but enough to exert some influence.
And why is San Diego choosing new commissioners?
Well, 2 of its commissioners have left. Scott Peters is now serving in Congress, and Lee Burdick is working for Mayor Bob Filner. So Monday, the San Diego City Council will appoint 2 new members to the Port Commission from among 6 nominees, and they'll each serve a 4-year term on the Port Commission.
And give us a sense of what are some of the issues they'll be dealing with.
There are 2 major development projects coming up, the Convention Center expansion and the remake of the Chula Vista Bayfront. The port also wants to rejuvenate the cruise ship business and work on increasing both imports and exports of consumer goods. So there will be plenty for these 2 people to do.
KPBS reporter Katie Orr. In our Friday Roundtable, Peggy Pico explains how federal and state agencies are trying to balance green energy demands with environmental concerns in the massive Southern California desert area.
State and federal agencies are offering the public an early look at 4 new versions of the Desert Renewable Energy Conservation Plan. UT San Diego's Morgan Lee joins me with details of the plan that stretches from East San Diego County through Imperial, Kern, LA, Riverside, and San Bernardino counties. Morgan, thanks so much for talking with us today.
Thank you.
Your article, you described that there were several agencies trying to work together on this to try to protect plants and animals, at the same time try to develop alternative energy sources in the California desert here. Give us a little, basically, I guess I'm trying to find out what the primary goal of this plan is.
Sure. Well, the core idea is to try and avoid some of the conflicts between energy development and habitat and the environment in these, really vast, unpopulated areas of California that suddenly are an enormous energy resource.
Let's talk about what we're actually talking about in terms of acreage. How much land and who owns it right now?
So the plan covers this enormous area. It's the size of Indiana or Maine, stretching from, Mexico up way past the Los Angeles basin. And it's out of that entire area, a small portion, relatively speaking, still bigger than the city of San Diego, is going to wind up having actual solar panels on it, actual wind turbines or geothermal plants. But the idea here is to make sure that it's working around the most delicate areas of the desert that really need to be conserved, not cutting off pathways for migratory species.
Let's talk about those species. There's 73 species you named were on this desert-sensitive desert
That's the working
list.
list.
Yes, but there's some actually contention over that. What's the contention and what's the one untouchable species?
Well, the one untouchable is the California condor, because as a lot of us know, that for generations, so much work has gone into preserving that species and making sure it's not wiped off the face of the earth. So, but the other ones, basically people are concerned about the methodology, whether something's being left out, whether they're appropriate. One comment by a panel of scientists is that where are the insects? Or these are all birds and cuddly things.
That it's not comprehensive
and
enough.
Burrowing owls and golden eagles. This is right now. There's sort of a vetting process for that, and people can still weigh in sort of informally this month, and then the big sort of official process starts next summer when there's an environmental impact statement and people make comments that are put on the record, and some of that gets settled.
I found your report to be really interesting because you named off a whole lot of different agencies, from federal to state, environmental. Kind of tell us a little bit about the big players. Who's really involved in this?
So the big agencies, there's 4 of them that are really heading up the effort. So there's the Bureau of Land Management. I'm just going to refer to my notes.
Sure,
some
absolutely,
of it's alphabet
absolutely,
soup. The California Energy Commission, so they're the ones that site power plants in the state. U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the California Department of Fish and Game. So those are the folks that keep track of sensitive species and their habitats, and so that's the reason they're in there. So it's
and the Environmental Protection Agency, right?
Well, they're being consulted, and one of the things that's come up, it's interesting, is the EPA just completed a study where they found sort of already disturbed areas, and some of them are brownfields, some of them are just former agricultural areas that may have had some pollution at one point, that are near transmission, that would be ideal for putting power plants. And people were sort of raising their hands saying, hey, wait a second, have you just incorporated this work? That's one way to avoid developing untouched areas, would be to tap those areas.
Let's touch on this. There is a lot of criticism saying this is being fast-tracked. It looks all kind of nice and easy. People are talking and people are trying to get this done. But the criticism is it's being fast-tracked, but there's a reason for that, right? Talk about the mandate.
Well, it's being fast-tracked because there's government incentives. There's huge tax credits, the investment tax credit for solar, the production tax credit that was just extended for wind energy. All those things are driving this emerging industry, as are the state requirements, that all retail electricity, that a third of it by 2020 is going to be derived from these new renewable energy plants.
All right.
So to put the brakes on it, environmentalists are saying is actually not a good thing. You need to come up quickly with a conservation plan to avoid these to sort of make sure certain things aren't going to get ruined.
Right,
yeah.
and they don't have to go back.
The clock is already ticking.
The clock is ticking, but the public can still weigh in. How and where can they do that?
They can do that. There's a special website for the Desert Renewable Energy Conservation Plan. So it's just the initials.org, or if you Google that, it'll take you to it. On Wednesday next week, on the 9th, there's going to be a web presentation. So if you just it's very easy to navigate that site and find how to watch that. And then there's 1,000 pages of documents that you can read if you have a lot of time.
Read through and weigh in on. All right, UT San Diego's Morgan Lee, thank you so much for bringing this to our attention and talking with us about it.
Thank you, Peggy.
A tentative settlement has been reached in the case of a young woman with ties to San Diego. She was convicted of killing her pimp in Riverside in 1994. We told you the story of Sarah Cruzan, who lived in San Diego as a child. She was 16 at the time of the murder. Her lawyers say she was raped and ordered into prostitution by the man she later killed. The Riverside Press Enterprise says details of the settlement were not released. Cruzan could be retried or released for time served. A review hearing is set for January 11th. San Diego gas prices are on the rise again. The average for a gallon of regular rose 1.5 cents today, matching the largest increase in nearly 3 months. It's been a month since Bob Filner took over the mayor's office in San Diego, but Peggy Pico explains why many news outlets say he hasn't kept his promise of a transparent City Hall.
Joining me on our weekly roundtable is UT San Diego's Craig Gustafson to talk about Bob Filner's administration and if the city government is any more transparent than it was before he was elected. Craig, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Give us a general assessment of what you think about Filner's new administration, the beginning of it here.
Well, I mean, he's off to a bit of a rocky start. He's been pretty reluctant to provide information to the media. He's had a few press conferences, but just in general, he's had a little trouble putting together his staff. He just hired a communications director yesterday, that we just started yesterday. Irene McCormick from the Port, who's a former UT reporter from back in the day. And it's just been a slow go in the first month of his tenure.
He promised and was very clear about a transparent government. What has been your issue on trying to get information from him about who he's hired and other issues?
Yeah, and basically I put in a public records request 101, which is, who have you hired and how much are you paying them? And we did that just a couple days after he took office, gave him a few days, and then we asked. And basically for the last month he has not provided that information. I mean, this is stuff that is pretty basic. Under Mayor Sanders, if you asked for somebody's position, name, and salary, you would get that probably within a half an hour. And by contrast, I asked each of the city council offices to provide the same information, and they all did it within 24 hours. So Filner still hasn't released any of that information.
Has he said why?
Well, they keep making excuses. We're in a transition period, and we're having trouble putting things together, and all this other stuff. But I mean, bottom line, this is you should be able to, at any given point, just tell me who's on your staff. And
how much they're making.
Yeah.
According to the California Public Records Act, what is actually required as far as disclosure?
Well, if you have something immediately available at your fingertips, you should provide them information right away. And obviously it'd be pretty easy to figure out if somebody's working for the city and how much they're making, especially if you're the strong mayor. So that's something that should be provided right away. If it's something more complicated, under the law, you get a 10-day window to provide it. And if it's really complicated, you can ask for a 14-day extension. He's never asked for an extension. They've promised this information to me probably 3 or 4 times now, and with specific days they would give it, and still have not. And as of today, they said they would provide it on Monday.
And not just you, they haven't delivered to any of the news sources we ourselves have been asking.
Yeah, I know that people will say, well, the UT San Diego, the ownership, opposed his candidacy. Maybe he's just trying to stiff the UT. It's not that. He's doing it with pretty much every media outlet in town. He's not providing basic information to City Beat, KPBS, and others.
You know, do you think this could be part of, he wanted to hire Donna Fry to be, ironically, director of his open government, and there were some issues with that. First, tell us what the issue was, and then do you think that maybe that's a reason why?
Well, she is working for him right now. So the issue is she previously was a city council person and is collecting a pension from the city. And in the municipal code, you cannot rehire somebody who's already drawing a pension. So she can only be hired as a provisional employee for up to 90 days a year. So that's what she's starting as a provisional employee, so she's got about 3 months to work, and then they're going to try to change the municipal code to make an exception for her. Now, he made a big deal the day after he was elected, saying, you know, we're going to have a transparent and open government.
Right, I remember.
I'm going to put Donna Fry in charge of this. I'm going to be regularly meeting with the press and giving you guys whatever you need, and that has just not been the case at all. Donna Fry won't even return phone calls and whatnot, even though she has an office and a line and everything. His press people rarely return calls, and if they do, it's usually no comment.
And again, I want to be clear that this isn't just UT San Diego and some sort of vendetta. You know, it doesn't seem to be anyway, because it seems to be across the board with many news outlets.
And I know some people watching will probably be like, oh, boo-hoo, the UT's not getting what it wants, or KPBS isn't getting what it wants, but that's not the point. I mean, under the strong mayor form of government, the mayor has all the information and control over the dissemination of that information. So if he's not releasing any information, it's not just to the media, it's to lawyers, business leaders in town who maybe have projects before the city. I mean, it's a much bigger...
And to the voters. That's why people are turning into the media to find out about this. Well, we are out of time, so Craig Gustafson with the UT San Diego, thank you so much for talking with us.
Thanks for having me.
More than 12,000 legal refugees have resettled in San Diego County in the past 4 years, and making the transition to American life can be stressful, particularly for kids. KPBS reporter Mona Lisa Noor tells us how one organization is determined to help.
On the field of El Cajon Valley High School, dozens of kids practice drills and play soccer after a long day at school. These kids are part of Yalla, a San Diego nonprofit that provides free tutoring and soccer training to immigrant and refugee youth. 18-year-old Ahmed Abdel Karim moved to the U.S. in 2009. Like many here, he comes from Iraq.
Of course, there was a reason why we left from Iraq to Jordan. It's because the war, of course, and a lot of things.
When the war in Iraq started, Ahmed was diagnosed with a blood disorder. To get medical treatment, his family moved to Jordan before coming to the U.S. Last year, Ahmed moved to the San Diego area. His love for soccer drew him to Yalla.
It made my school life a lot easier because it helps me a lot through school, like the homework, the things that I don't know how to do, the things that I need help on for the school.
Or we can put like magic.
Earlier in the day, Ahmed worked on his college applications with Yalla's founder, Mark Caban. Ahmed plans to study nursing. Yalla stands for Youth and Leaders Living Actively. It's also Arabic for Let's Go. College is the goal, soccer the vehicle to get there.
When you start winning, when you start succeeding, then that really spills over to everything else. And we're starting to have them realize that they can succeed in school.
It's a strategy 25-year-old Caban has experienced firsthand. While he was born in the U.S., Caban lived in Beirut before moving back to America when he was 9.
When I first came here, like a lot of the kids in our program right now, I felt kind of lonely, you know. I didn't really fit in, and, you know, economically, there's like that visible difference between you and other kids. But when I used to play sports, all those things didn't matter.
Caban went on to get a college football scholarship. After graduating from Baker University in Kansas, he worked as a refugee case manager for Catholic Charities in San Diego. While there, he witnessed the tough transitions families faced. Kids stuck in their apartments, struggling with school.
The difficult thing for the kids is that they have expectations to do homework and do college applications and do SAT prep, but when they get home, their parents don't speak English, and there's nobody that knows the language or has a good command of the language.
According to the Center for Health and Healthcare in Schools, in 2005, 1 in 4 immigrant or refugee youth dropped out of high school. The lack of resources available for these kids is what motivated Kaban to start Yalla in 2009. In addition to helping kids with soccer and schoolwork, the program also focuses on connecting kids to the outdoors. Currently, Yalla operates in the Cajon Valley Union and Grossmont Union High School districts. During the soccer season, Yalla serves 200 students ranging from elementary to high school. Kaban says he's seen significant improvements in the kids' academic success. About 20 Yalla kids have gone to college. Many aspire to go into fields like engineering and computer programming. The aim is to set the bar high.
I just want these kids to be able to feel like they're in the driver's seat of their destiny. Because I think when you're a refugee, you don't get to choose your lifestyle. You don't get to choose to your country to be destroyed. You don't get to choose to lose family members or start over. But I want these kids to feel like they're back and they're choosing what's going to happen next for them.
All right, guys.
For the future, Kaban hopes to start an all-girls refugee soccer team. But the primary goal for Yalla, he says, is securing funding for a community center dedicated to Yalla's mission of guiding immigrant and refugee youth to success.
Yalla on 3. 1, 2, 3, Yalla!
Mona Lisa Noor, KPBS News.
Scientists have been working on ways to predict disease outbreaks for decades, but recent improvements in weather tracking, such as satellite technology and data processing, have helped improve disease forecasting. Marina Hutchinson with the Associated Press has the story.
Only a 10% chance of showers today, but a 70% chance of flu next month. That's the kind of forecasting health scientists are trying to move toward.
So we're going for something where we could say there's a 50% chance that in 5 weeks we're going to be at the peak of the flu outbreak in New York City, let's say.
Such disease modeling got some attention recently when Jeffrey Shaman, a researcher at Columbia University, and another scientist said they could predict when flu season was going to peak in New York more than 7 weeks in advance. Theirs is just the latest in a growing wave of disease models that factor in rainfall, temperature, or other weather conditions.
The idea really is we're not using a weather model, we're using the techniques that they use in weather prediction.
Diseases can be forecast by using statistical and mathematical models which simulate disease transmission in the population.
That also involves observing searches for information on various diseases.
They can actually do a very localized Google-based tool where they take information from a community and predict how much influenza is spread in that community.
Some diseases like the flu are more predictable than others.
Diseases for which we know the mode of transmission or for how many days the duration of illness are easier to forecast and easier to model.
Recently, health officials advised that flu season is off to its earliest start in 10 years, with the highest activity in 5 southern states. But experts note disease outbreaks are influenced as much by human behavior and other factors as by the weather, and that weather-based outbreak prediction still has a long way to go. Marina Hutchinson, The Associated Press.
There's a new report out tonight from the State Attorney General's office on the California Department of Parks and Recreation. It says officials at the highest level helped keep millions of dollars secret for more than a decade. The report says employees feared the budget would be cut if lawmakers found out. $54 million was found hidden in 2 special funds, even as up to 70 parks face closure.
I'm Judy Woodruff on the next News Hour, the latest jobs report, plus the analysis of Shields and Brooks. That's Friday on the PBS News Hour.
San Diego weather mostly sunny and mild along the coast tomorrow, mid-60s with increasing clouds and cooler temperatures on Sunday and Monday. Chilly nights inland dipping into the 40s with sunshine Saturday and a chance of some showers late Sunday into Monday. Mountain areas remain cool in the 40s and 50s with a chance of rain, and the desert will be mostly sunny with highs in the 60s.
In tonight's Public Square, well-researched KPBS web comments on opposite sides of a new federal policy that aims to help families stay together during the immigration process. The waiver change addresses some undocumented immigrants who marry U.S. citizens or who have parents or children who are U.S. citizens. IGJ here quoted a new book, What Foreigners Need to Know About Americans from A to Z, that talks about the role, struggles, and contribution of immigrants. He posted a closing quote from the book that reads, "With all of our cultural differences, though, you'll be surprised to learn how much our countries and we as human beings have in common on this little third rock from the sun." On the other side of the issue, Britannicus wrote about a legal workforce bill introduced by Republican Congressman Lamar Smith from Texas. He wrote the bill is, quote, filled with innovations to drive out illegal aliens from the labor force, including mandatory E-Verify. We really need the public to yell at their politicians in the state and federal offices to make this bill a law. You can join in on this conversation or comment on any KPBS story by following us on Twitter, liking us on Facebook, or email us at publicsquare@kpbs.org.
And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. You have a great weekend.